So today's topic is going to be I/O processing, and at the end, if time permits, then we will look into the basics of writing user-defined function. Probably it would take a separate session because there are a lot of other options how you can pass parameters and stuff like that. Okay. So yesterday we saw the complex data types, and we also saw some examples to choose when certain things are applicable, right? So far what we have seen is how we can how we can process, how we can massage, reformat, calculate data that has been loaded in the memory, right? Like, so we had variables, we generated random data, but still we stored those things in variables, which will be part of the program's address space when it runs. And then when the program ends, those data, what we have loaded, computed, everything goes away, right? So our concentration so far was mainly on like how to process these variables, and then different sort of computation, reformatting, transforming, aggregating. So all those kind of operations, which are memory and CPU operations that we have seen so far. Okay, but when it comes to the usability, the program should be able to read data from different streams and then write it into different streams. Okay, so when I say stream in general, it could be like from the network, right? So you have APIs where you can gather data, and so you have socket processing, or like you have database processing. Okay, but very primitive, one of the oldest way of input output processing, in the sense like you read from a persistent storage and write it into persistent storage, so that like the calculated or computed data from your script can be shared with other processes, or even the humans that who can use the data and then do some sort of calculation, or have some knowledge about what you have done, right? So file processing is probably one of the the oldest, right? Like when initially when all this computing started, so they had the punched cards and tapes, and punched cards and printers, and then they got into tapes, and so on, right? So the initial and still very useful I/O processing is files. Okay, and when we take files, there are broadly two categories. One is the text or ASCII files, and then the binary files. Okay, so the text files are like your normal, flat data, or like comma delimited data, something that you can open in a text editor, and then you should be able to read it, understand it. So basically data that is human readable. The binary files, on the other hand, they are not human readable. You need specific applications to process them. And examples are like zip files, the database files, the actual, like even though you see using applications, the various tables, and this in a very formatted way, like even Excel, in the background, these binary files will have a lot of gibberish, right? Like you can't directly read the file. You need certain applications. Okay. So there are advantages and disadvantages on both. So if you talk about the text files or the human readable ASCII files, so you can open it in any editor that is available. Any operating system worth its salt at least have one text editor built in. So when you open it, it is readable, right? So as long as you know the language, so you should be able to read it. You should be able to manipulate it. You should be able to make some sense out of it. Okay. So the disadvantage is these files generally takes more space than the corresponding binary uh, files. And the second thing is you need to have an inner understanding of what this data means, because sometimes there is name in it, there is number in it. So if you see like like a 3.14, so you don't know what exactly it is. It might be a temperature, it might be a wind speed, it might be weight in kilograms or pounds. So there is no inherent schema attached to these text files. Okay, so there is some degree of information you can put in, especially when it comes to comma delimited files, where the first records can be header. And that brings to another thing, like there is no specification a delimiter file has to have a header, one header, two header, or whatever it is. So that means the data or the format is very fluid. So either the creator of the data has to put some schema, like, from this position to this position is name, and then what comes after name, the next text 10 bytes is going to be, like a city or something like that. Okay. So the flexibility and human readability and ease of use is the advantage, whereas you need to have more additional information and taking more space. And also, like when you store a lot of numbers, right, especially like when you talk about big data and others, and there will be number crunching, right? So what you see on this text file are ASCII representation of the file. So when the program reads it, it has to convert that into binary and do the calculations. So especially the storing numbers will take a lot of bytes, right? So when it comes to binary files, so when I say binary files, it is you can think of files like you load a CSV file into a database, right? So what happens is these data will be stored internally as some compressed format. Or like when you talk about big data and data analytics, so there are some compression formats that are available. Like one of the things is called Parquet, PARQUET, So and if any of you have worked on SAS stores the data read from external source into something called SAS datasets, which is again a binary representation of data. So that means the numeric data especially is compressed. So probably like, if you have a text file, the same thing is loaded into this sort of internal binary representation, you would save anywhere between like, 40 to 50% of space. And another advantage with this binary format is most of the time there will be metadata associated with the actual data. So that means, so if you store name, address, and those things, so typically like where that name starts with and what is the length of the name, and then where the address starts, all those things will be usually embedded. So what we call them as schema or metadata about your actual data will be stored as a part of the binary file. The disadvantage, on the other hand, is you need specific applications to look into the data, right? You cannot simply open it in a text editor. So that is one of the disadvantage, right? So every coin has two faces. So like, the advantages outweigh disadvantage. So you take one of those formats, right? So in today's session, we are going to talk about these text files only. Okay. So this basic IO operations, so far what we have seen is in some way you can read from a keyboard or you can generate data, right? Those were our input. So we use the input function to get data from the keyboard, and then we use the print to display data on the screen. Okay. So if you know command line operation, so there is a way you could have created files, right? Redirect the output of your script into a file. Both Windows and Unix supports it. So in that way, you will be able to persist the data. Okay, but that again depends on how well your file is written. Are you printing only the records? Are you're printing log messages? Or you printing whatever it is, right? So that may not help. Okay, so now we will talk about file operations in general, right? So when I say file, file is a chunk of data that stores that resides on your hard disk, right? So based on your operating system, so there will be a file system associated with your operating system, right? So if it is Windows, it is NTFS. Very old Windows used to have a FAT32 file system. In the Unix world, it is generally called HFS. So even though like you have ext3, ext4, and JFS, so there are many names for file system. So what file system does is, so there is a chunk of memory that takes up these files. But when you open a file in text editor, or when you open a file in a program to read or write, how does the system knows where to take this file and how long the file is, how the record, how many bytes it is needed, and then all those things, right? So file system provides a way to store some information about the data chunks that constitute these files, and then how to assemble them, and then bring it back, and if you edit, and then if you save it, how to go and update, right? So so that is how a program or application can recognize a file by the name. So internally, there will be some numeric identifier, associated with it. So especially when you open programmatically or using an application, that's how it is processed, right? So for us to process a file, first thing is we need to open a file. So what exactly opening means, you give a file name and then you give a mode, right? So what are you going to do with this file? Are you going to read it or write it? Write into it, read from it or write into it, right? So once you have the file name and then the mode, so you issue an open function call. So what Python does is it passes this request to the underlying operating system. That operating system does some checks. If you're opening a file for reading, it goes and check whether the file exists. Okay. So first check is done. And the second thing is, whoever is running this program, do they have permission to read the file? Then that is also checked. So if that is both conditions are passed, then it is going to give you a file pointer or a file handle where so there is a pointer that is placed in front of the address of the very first byte of the file. So then you can issue some read functions, and then you can read from it. And when end of the file comes, so typically when you try to read something, there won't be anything coming out of it. The data will be empty. Then you will know end of file is reached. Then you close the file, right? So in order to read a file, you need to have the file existing, and then you need to have permission. And the operations are reopen, read one or more times, and then close. When it comes to writing, you need to have permission to write on a location where you are trying to create this file. Okay, that's one thing. And the second thing is, if you are going in a write mode, and if the file already exists, right, and then you have permission to do some operations, what happens is that file will be overridden. Okay. So a write operation creates a new file, or if the file exists, it will overwrite the content and put whatever data you have created on that particular run. So open, write mode, write into records, and then finally close it. So there are situations where you may not want to overwrite into the existing file. Okay, one of the usage would be a log file. So you might be running your program many times, and every time some log messages are created, you want to append. Okay, so the third mode is append mode. Append mode, what it does is it takes the file and then the mode will be append. It goes and do the same check whether the file exists, and then if you have permission to write into it, it identifies the file. It goes to the end of the file. Okay, like the way read and write operation kept the pointer at the very beginning of the file, it goes to the end of the file and then places the pointer. So anytime you write something into the file, the data will get appended, existing records will be untouched. Okay. In case if you are opening a file in append mode and the file didn't exist, the file will be created as if you open the file in write mode. Okay. So in short, for reading a file, the file has to exist and you need to have permission. For writing a file, you need to have a permission to write data into the location or a directory or a folder. And in case if the file name already exists, it will get overwritten. And for appending, you need to have write permissions. If the file exists, the data will get appended to the existing file. If the file doesn't exist, the file will be created. Okay. And one of the things that you need to remember is Python closes any open files automatically when the program ends. Okay, so people might tend to drop the close statement, call the close function a lot of times. This may not be a problem in most of the cases. Okay, but I would recommend you always follow this 3 steps: open file, do the operation, and then close the file explicitly. Okay, why is it very important to close our files by ourselves, even though Python does it when the file ends? Okay, so at least I can tell you a couple of scenarios where we face the issue in in our cases, like when we were reviewing or when we were troubleshooting some issues. First thing, you create a file, right? You open, you write, then you might want to copy the file somewhere else, right? So what happens is when you issue a write statement in the hardware background architecture, when you read a record from a file or when you write a record into a file, the system doesn't exactly do that for you. Okay, let's say like your file is there in the hard disk, and then the data comes into the memory for processing, right? So in between, what we have is an IO buffer. So if you say read a record, since the data retrieval from the hard disk to the memory is much more slower compared to processing in the memory or RAM. So what the system does is it reads multiple records for you. The same way, when you write a record into a file, it doesn't go and write it automatically. Okay, it keeps those records in a buffer, and then probably once you have sufficient number of records, probably every 10 record or every 15 record, that is an internal representation, it goes and write into the file and then make it persistent. So you write a few records into a file and then you didn't close it, then you are doing a copy of this file to another location. Maybe you're sending it to a different server, right? Your FTP. So what would happen is, if some of the records were sitting in the IO buffer, though you might miss it. And the second thing is, a lot of times you create a file, you zip it, right? If you don't close it before you zip the file, again the same issue will come. So there will be possible data loss. Okay. So in order to avoid that, always close the file. So you open it, you close it. That is your responsibility. Okay. Then apart from this, what are the issues, right? So we have found. So one thing is file not found, right? So you're trying to open a file, it is not there. Python will give you an error. File exists, and then it will get overridden. This is an issue, but there won't be any error. It's the loss of data. Python is totally fine with it. Okay, but it might be an issue for you. Your data get overridden. So make sure that either every time you write a file, you create a file, you might want to create a unique folder or a directory for that processing and then put it over there so that your existing file are not accidentally modified or removed. Permission issues. So especially somebody else create a file, put it in a common location. If they didn't set the permission appropriately, then we may not able to read or write. Incorrect path. Right? Sometimes we use a relative path. So if we are not in, pointing to the right file or pointing to the right location, especially the directory, we will have a problem. Okay, it can be avoided two ways. One is when you have your code, create a proper folder structure for your project, right? So you have bin in where all your scripts are there. You have a etc directory where all your configuration files are there. So you have a data directory where your data files log, and then have a project root directory path, and then from there you can do a relative path. Okay, so you have to be careful. Okay, the second thing you can do is always give an absolute path, right? Absolute path means like from the root level, you give the entire thing. If it is Windows, you would simply say C:// whatever, and then /file name. In the Linux or Mac world, you just say /home/username/whatever, right? And the data loss or duplication, that is something that we have seen, especially when you try to move zip files like before it is actually closed, or if you are doing a multi-threading and you try to write it into same file, right? So even though there are some operations where we can use file locking and unlocking, it is not that robust. So especially if you are doing multi-threading operation, make sure that every thread has its own file. So once all the threads are done, you can merge it, concatenate it at the end if you want. Because multi-threading is something that you're doing because so you have more computing power, like multi-core processors. So instead of doing serial processing, you are doing it parallel. So to save some time, but you don't want to screw up things by making every thread write into the same file. Okay, so these are some of the lessons we learned from our projects. I'm just passing it on. Okay, so any questions? Okay. So before we actually get into some sample code, let's look into what will happen when you try to open a file. Okay. So you issue an open function, you give the file name, you give the mode. Okay, the mode are like read, write, append. There are other modes available, especially processing binary files, or like if you want to read and write back and forth. So we are not going to discuss about those. The read mode will be represented by the word R, small r, W for writing, and A for appending. Okay. So you open the file. What Python does is it checks. Okay. So assuming the files are present for reading, the files are not there for writing, and then file may or may not be there for appending, and then you have permission. Okay. So if it is reading, So what happens is Python puts the pointer at the very beginning, just 1 byte before your first record, so that it can read from the beginning. If you open it for writing, so it can be either the write mode or the append mode. So write mode, it just put the same way as the read. The file exists and the file is created, and then the pointer is kept at the very beginning so that you can keep on writing. If it is append mode, again it checks whether the file exists. If it exists, it puts the pointer at the end of the last byte so that you can append, right? And there is a read and write mode, which is generally called R plus, A plus, or W plus. So what it means is there are some functions where you should be able to reset the pointer so you can read or write back and forth. It's the same thing, right? Like read and write in the sense like what you are going to do with that operation. Okay. So this is a very high level representation of what will happen to the file, and then where will be the file pointer when you open a file in any of these modes. Okay, so now let's look at the syntax. So there is an open function, which is a built-in function. It takes the file name as a first parameter, and the second parameter is the mode. Okay, so the mode will just we saw RW, A, R plus, W plus, A plus, and same corresponding you have for binary files where you have RB, as in read binary, WB, and so on. So you simply issue open statement, open function, and if the open is successful, the file pointer will be there on the variable. Okay, so you can use FP or FH as a variable naming convention. If there are multiple file handle, you can do something like something underscore FH, like input underscore FH or IFH or OFH and so on. Right? So open is issued, and then you have a file pointer. Then you're going to either read, write, or append into a file. For reading, you have 4 different ways. So read function, read line function, and read lines function. Okay. So what read does is reads the entire file as one string. Okay. If the file is small, like configuration files, you could do that, right? Read also optionally takes up a number, so it can read only that many bytes. Read line, on the other hand, it can detect a end of line or a new line character, and then it reads one record at a time, including the new line. The new line will be there as a part of your record, so you have to watch out for that, right? If you want to remove file processing, you should do that. Read lines, on the other hand, is like the read function. It's just that it reads the entire file, and each record will be written as a list, right? You have a list that contains n number of records. Okay, let's say you have a file with 10 records. Each record is 100 byte long. The first option, the read function, will read the entire file and then create a 1000 byte long string. The read line you need to issue 10 times in a loop in order to get one record at a time as a string. The read lines, on the other hand, read the entire file as a list of 10 records, each containing a string of 100 bytes. Okay, and finally, the thing that we actually use, at least that's what I prefer, is using the for loop. So for loop, you know that it iterates the sequence or a iterator, right? So when you create a file pointer is like an iterator, like it can actually iterate and give one record at a time. That means the read line is kind of built in when you do a for loop. So when you say for variable in file pointer, so for each record, the loop executes as long as there is record in it. So iteration 1 first record, iteration 2 second record, and so on. So even though I have examples to deal with each of these functions, on the later stage we would be using the for loop only. Okay, so it is there for your awareness. Sometimes you might need it. Either it is based on some specifications or like personal choice, but at least I usually use the for loop. And similarly for writing, you have three options. The write function, which can write a string. The write lines can take a list and then write it into a file. In both cases, you have to make sure that the record delimiter is explicitly present. The write and write line doesn't add the record delimiter. You have to make sure that there is a new line /n or a record line feed /r, depends on your operating system, is explicitly present. And my favorite way of writing is using the print function. So if you remember on day one, we saw the print has additional parameters like SCP separator equal to, end equal to, and there is also file equal to. Let me show that. Right, help print. Okay. So if you look at it, so this is your data, and then separator is space by default, end is new line by default, and then file is sys.stdout. So if you override this statement, this parameter file equal to file handle, so instead of writing that into the screen, it will write it into the file. Okay. And end of line is by default, so you don't have to explicitly code an end of line. So this is what we will be using for write, and this is what we will be using for read going forward. In our case studies are like the full programs that we will be looking into from probably next Wednesday onwards, right? So closing would be file handle dot close. Okay. So now any questions? So now I'm going to get into some examples. Any questions you have? Okay, so no questions, I believe. Just to be sure, am I still audible?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so what I have is, I have a CSV file, sample CSV file, and so this is generated for later stage, like I want to show you something. So let me show you what it has. Okay, so it has some comma delimiter data. So I have a city, last name, first name, and then gender. Okay, so think of it as something like a population census. So we are just recording only the person's name, the city where they live in, and their gender alone. Okay, so we just wanted to run some statistics, like how many male versus female population in a particular city-wise, or like in a country or something like that. Okay, so this is created using fake data generation module, so that you can install, which is called the Faker, Faker. Okay, so what we are going to do is, so coincidentally, this file has only 10 records. So I have first coded the read function. Okay, so we have the file name as a variable, I said I issued fh equal to open, and then file name comma read operation, right? Read mode. And the read is something that you can ignore. So if you just give only the file name, Python assumes it's a right. So if you look at it, the second parameter mode equal to R is by default. Okay. So we opened the file, and then I issued the fh.read, and then we close the file because the read is going to read the entire thing. Then I'm printing the records on screen, and then finally I'm just getting the length of that particular variable and then the type of the variable. So this is one string. Okay, since the new line is part of the string and the file read the entire read function read the entire file. So we have 294 bytes of data, and which is a string. So a single variable. Okay. So this is how you will create the record. Okay. So let's say if you want to process record by record, right? So what you will be doing is like data equal to rex dot split lines, I believe. So that's a function. So in string, you have a split lines function method. And then if you say print len data, then it shows 10. Okay, so let's say we put some new line so that we know what is the additional data present. What here I'm going to do is I'm just going to initialize a counter equal to 1. Then for rect in data, which is a list, right? And then I'm just going to say print f f ctr comma then rect. Okay. And then I'm just going to say end equal to null because already the end of line character is there. CTR plus equal to 1. Oh, okay. So we did the split line. The split line happened by a new line. So new line is gone, right? Okay, CTR plus equal to 1. So this is the read operation. And in case if you want to process record by record, once you read and then close the file, so you simply use a split lines function. Then it splits by the new line. So that means new line will be gone because it uses a delimiter. And then you simply read the record from the list. So split line will return a list of records. Okay, so here is a original string. And then after that, what I did is I just added a sequence number, and then we process record by record. Okay, so this is the first option. Okay. The second option is read line. So we are opening the file. We just say while true. Okay, so we are going to create an infinite loop, and then we are going to exit when there is no more record. Okay. So there are other ways you can code that as well. You know, you just issue a read line outside the while loop, and then you can say while rec. right? As long as the record has some characters, then it will be true. Once the end of file is reached, the record will be empty, and then it can come out also. Okay, so it's entirely up to you. So while true, you say record equal to fh.readLine. One record will come, including the new line, and then we are printing it, and then we are checking whether the record is empty or not empty, right? So if record there is nothing, the record will be empty, and then you know that null string is false, right? So if there is no record, then we do a break, and finally we close. So here, if you look at it, okay, I'm just going to take this one out. Okay. Okay. This is also not needed anyway. Okay. So in this case, like we are reading anyway record by record, right? And the third option, the same thing like read, instead of that we give a read lines. So when we print that, it is a list of 10 variables including the new line. So if you look at it, this is the first record that comes as a list, and there is a new line at the end. So now you can use a for loop to process it if you want. Okay, the read and read line, they are actually good candidates for smaller files. If you try to pull this stunt on a big file, Python will try to read as much as long as you have a memory, right? Let's say you have a 4 GB RAM file, so you have a 8 GB file. So chances are that at some point Python will crash or your system will crash. So it depends, right? So if you want to read record by record, or if you want to process a big file, then process record by record. And then finally, my favorite or very clean and simple way of doing it is open a file, iterate the file handle using the for loop. So every time one record will come. So it is as if the for loop is issuing a read line in the background. So then we simply print it. Okay, so we have 10 records and it is of type. Okay, so it has 10 records. Okay, so these are the 4 different ways you can read from a file. So this means it opens a lot of possibility for you when you practice. Okay, so there are simply a lot of data out there. So if you want to go and fetch something, right? Like even our own, I think it is india.data.gov. There is a site where you can simply go and then fetch some data like electoral data or like school information. So if you go to open data source sites, you will get temperature information or population information. So there are a lot of data sets from UN, US government, Indian government, where so you will be able to take and do whatever operation you want to do, right? So now you have half of the knowledge, right? So you can read from a file. So once the data is there, you can construct lists, dictionaries, you can reformat, you can reprocess, you can do whatever you want with those files. Okay, records. The second part is writing, right? It is very simple. Okay, so here is our original data, a CSV file, right? So what we are going to do is we are going to convert that into a pixel format file, right? That means every field starts with the same position. It will have the same length. If the field value is very small, then you will put trailing spaces, right? So here what we are doing is we have an input file, some file name .csv, and then we have output file, the same file name with .txt extension. We have a counter variable because we, in addition to creating a fixed format file, we also want to put a sequence number to the file. So we open both files, one in read mode and one in write mode. Okay. And then from the input file, we are reading the file, right? And then we are incrementing the counter. So we know that, so this is what I was talking about. When you read a file, you need to know what exactly it contains. Okay, so we are not doing many checks just to see whether there are 5 fields. So this file has city, last name, first name, gender, and dollar as a, sorry, Z as a end of record character. So this is a typical convention to show that the file is not truncated. Okay, the very last field would be something like Z, dollar, or a dot. You know, something that means like you can check once you read the record whether the last character is that, so that like you know that the record is not truncated, or there is a runaway record or something like that. We know there are 5 records. So you issue the split method in the string. You split it by comma. So I will assign it to a couple of variables. So city, last name, first name, gender, and I don't want the 5th field, but as a placeholder, I am just giving the underscore. So we have discussed about the significance of underscore in a for loop yesterday as well. Okay. So now I have all these variables, data I read from the input file. So now I have the print function. I didn't use the write or write line. Okay, so we discussed about this. I am just leaving that up to you if you want to try those out. Okay. So I do a f string or a format string. The counter variable is going to be 6-byte long with a leading 0. And then I have a space, and city 30-byte long, last name 20-byte long, first name 20-byte long, gender and a space, and I am using a dollar as a end of record character, the same way CSV used is it. Okay. So when I run this, okay, and then I issue a cat because the file, so this entire operation will not do anything. Okay, so if I really want to write something, I can write something like file conversion started. Okay, so I will put some sort of log message, right, and then probably print. Okay. So some sort of messaging is there. So that means you can typically take this and then put it in a script and then you can run it. Okay. So that also we will do. Now let me look at the data. Right. So I am issuing the cat command. Okay, which is the command in the Unix world to display the file on a screen. Okay, so in case if you join late or like if you didn't remember, I can run the underlying operating system's commands in the Jupyter notebook. I have to simply put an exclamation mark and then put the command the way I run in this thing, right? So now I have a file, the CSV file that is converted into fixed format file. Okay, so okay, what I am going to do is I'm just going to copy this file. I think it is here only. Okay, so let me remove the. Okay. Okay, so that is already here. Okay, so I have my input file. I have all those things are here. So if I say Python demo, it is it ran. If I say cat gender data sample.csv, so here is our input file. Here is our output file. Okay. So so that is so along with the script, and then so whatever we have in this 56 cells of 56, yeah, but so whatever you have over here, so that gives you information about file read and write. Okay, so the very basic information. We haven't put much of logic. So before I get into doing something with like some meaningful processing, including the file read and write. So is there anything you want to ask or you want to get clarified?
So MK, I have a couple of real time question.
Can you speak up a bit loud? Like I have full volume, but still your voice is not audible that much.
Is it better now?
Yeah, it's okay.
All right. So I have a real basic question. So the situation I have is like I have thousands of files, and each
Okay.
file size is 256 megabytes.
256 megabytes. Okay.
So I have thousands of files. What I have to do is I have to read all the files, and
Okay.
I have to apply some transformation logic. Let's suppose I have a state data, so I have to sort the file in state wise basically.
State wise.
So
Okay.
and then again write back the file to the different location.
Different location. Are you going
So
to do like one file read and then create one new file, or are you going to combine?
so I'm trying to understand from your perspective how should I proceed.
Okay.
So,
So you have thousands of files.
mm-hmm.
So
And each may have a different mix and match data. So one file may have, let's suppose, 100 state of information, other file may have 50. So basically I have to read all the files and separate the data based on the states.
Uh, okay. So first of all, you have multiple files, right? And all these files are going to be in the same format, in the sense like I have 5
Yes.
fields, like first is a state and then second is something else, or like you are
Yes.
looking at files of different, different
Same.
types as well.
Same file format and same output format.
Same output format. So what exactly you are trying to do is you want to like if you have a state code, you want to, it's an example, right? Like you want to replace the state code with state name. For example, like if you have TN, then you want to go and put it as Tamil Nadu and something like that, right? Some logic, right? You are doing some transformation in the
So,
file,
so the
and
logic
then
you are saying, okay. So the logic you are saying, I can apply for each file individual. The logic
right.
I'm saying is like I have to read everything together and then sort based on the data that I need.
Okay. So first of all, the transformation you can basically first write one file and one output, uh, read, write, and transform. Right. So that is one unit of work. So you can create a function, right? It takes the input file name and then output file name, apply the transformation, and then write it. And then, so you have a module called threading in Python. So what you can do is you can probably process around 30 to 50 files in parallel, right? So in that case, what will happen is all these 1,000 files. So instead of 1,000 files processing sequentially, so you might be able to finish up the processing in probably like probably like one third of the time, right? So this is individual processing. And then you also mentioned that you want to sort the file and then you want to split it,
Yes.
like something like that. Maybe like, you have multiple files having the same state information. So you want to transform and then split the files by state.
Yes.
So in that case, you might have to use the underlying operating system. There is like a couple of things I would be able to do. One is, let's say while processing each individual files, let's say I'm getting the state list of states, unique states, right? So let's say I have 1,000 files, but all these 1,000 files belong to 50 different states. Okay, let's think of America, right? So I need to apply transformation on these 1,000 files, and then finally I need to create 50 files, one per state. Okay. So what I would do is, first of all, I will process the individual. I will write one function to process one file, and then I will use the threading module to run it in parallel, mainly to save time. So if the files doesn't have lot of records, you can do it sequentially. We are going to look at how we can process multiple files, right? If at all, like let's say each file you have is containing million record. So maybe in that case, you can use the threading module and then do a multi-threading, right? Second thing. While processing each and every file, you collect the state names or state codes. So you will know once you converted or transformed all the files, you know how many states are there. And then what you can do is, now you have the output files converted, and then you loop through the file names, read the file, and then write the record into corresponding state files. Okay. Um, may I know your name? I can send you some example, if you want.
Sure. My name is Pankaj Singh.
Oh, okay, Pankaj. I can, let me send you something, okay? Or like probably I can just put it in the group as well. So we will have multiple records. Probably I will have some 100 files. Think of it like the 10th results from CBSE, right? So I have data from, like some data in 100 files. We are going to create one file per state. So that means we will have, I don't know, 27 or 28 states. So we convert that. Maybe, each file will have something, a simple transformation I'm going to do is TN for Tamil Nadu, UP for Uttar Pradesh, and things like that. The input file will have TN, like the 2-byte state code. The output file will be converted into actual state names. Then the output, so you take hundreds of files and then create 26 files. Okay. Probably that's something I can do it and then share it with you. Okay.
Sure.
As
Yeah.
far as
Even
the
I
thread,
got your concept too.
as far as the threading is concerned, I can give you an example code how you can do threading, but I think that is out of the scope of this class, right? So we need to know a bit of object-oriented programming, but I can give you a template if you want to do threading. Okay.
Sure, MK. Thank you.
Okay. So, any questions? Okay. So now let's put this into some perspective, right? So what I'm going to show you is a very, I told you like we will have two case studies, right? One is to generate fake data. The other one is to transform files. We saw both, we will see both of those things in a very crude format. In the sense it's not a generalized solution. It is something that I have created like a one-time solution. Okay. So we are going to look at two Python files, very simple ones. Okay, and then I will share it with you. Okay, so we have another 20 minutes. So hopefully we can continue on Monday, right? The very first file is so I am creating a fake data of people, their gender, and a fictitious city. Right, the example that we use are the data. Okay. So I am using the import function to get the random module and then the OS module. Okay. And then I am also using a third-party module called Faker. Okay. So if you look at it, there is a convention I mentioned. I have my first two lines are a Python core module, the space, and then after the third-party module, we have only one, but they are the first two lines are alphabetically sorted. So Faker is a module where it packages hundreds of functions. It will give you some fake data. So it has some set of data that is it stores as configuration. So you will be able to get some random file, random first name, last name, gender, not gender, female names, male names, city, state, phone number, email ID, PIN code, UUIDs, and whatnots. Okay. Faker is an object-oriented module. So what we are doing is we are importing a class called Faker. Okay. So you don't need to know really object-oriented programming to understand this. Line 6 is I create a variable. It's like an object. I'm calling the Faker class. So it is like creating a new instant. And then I'm passing the locale en-us. So that means we are going to create some data with US as a locale. Okay. So if you want to create like Russian names or some other names, you would be able to do that. So this is something interesting if you want to play with it. And I have used the getPID function, our method from the OS module. This is just to show like how we kind of write log messages. Okay. So I get the PID. So the current process identifier. Okay. And then we have some print functions, print statements like, starting the data creation and getting city names. Okay. Then here what we are doing is we create some random cities. So we create a variable called cities, and then while the length of the city is less than 50. So I'm just trying to create 50 city random cities. Okay. Since like Faker uses a list of existing cities to create this, it is possible that it might give me the same city name. So what I'm doing is I get the city name and then I'm checking whether it is there in my list already or not. If it is there, I am ignoring it. If not, I'm appending it. I'll just make sure that this loop might run 100 times or 50 times. So I will exit the loop as soon as I get 50 random city names. Okay. Then I just put a statement and then I create a file called gender demographics citywide.csv, and then we open that in write mode. So I keep some variables, demographic counts and city count. So have some comment. So for each city, get a random number. So we are going to create some random number of records for each cities, and then create that many records with last name, first name, gender, and city name along with. That's what we are going to write. So we are iterating the city list, and then we are getting a random anywhere between 500 to 750. You can change this number. I can put 1000 to 5000, whatever it is. So we are going to generate, get a random number between 500 to 750, and then we are going to get that many records. So generated records for file, and we are saying city, one of number of cities. Okay, so when you look at line 32, you will understand more when you actually see the output. And then I am just doing range. I use the underscore because I don't really need the index 0, 2, 3, and so on. Faker has a method called last name, first name male, first name female for names. Okay, I get a last name. I get a gender by using the random.choice, which takes a list and then get a random element from it. And then first name is faker.firstname male. We call this method if gender equal to M. Else I call first name female. So this line will create a male name or female name. And then finally, I do a print city, last name, first name, gender, and Z, which is a constant. Separator is comma, file equal to fh. So this print is not going to print on the screen. This print is going to write into the file. Then I keep the demographics count, and then I keep the city count. Okay. And close the file. And finally, we are saying this many number of records are created for this many number of cities. This is the output file name, and data creation complete. Okay. So think of it as a trailer for our case study, where we would be generating elaborate number of records, but we would be also using some configuration file and functions and so on. Okay. So now I am just going to run this. Okay, so here is the thing for you. Okay, so when you write programs that goes into production or that is professional, we usually create logs, right? And then logs are generally appended to the same file. So either you have one log file or you have created one log file per date or something like that, right? So this is one way you could format your log messages. So if you look at it, every record has a process ID, right? You can put date if you want. So the messages are indented. Okay, starting data creation, and then you have 2 spaces, and then you have 4 spaces, and so on, right? So there is indentation. So this is our start, and this is one of the functionality. And then we are creating the random data, and then I'm just saying city 1 of 50, 2 of 50, 3 of 50, and so on, right? So created 529 records for Maria Town, created 514 records for West Williamsburg. Okay, so it gives me some information, and then I have created 30,709 records for 50 cities, and my output file name is gender demographics citywide.csv. Okay, so if I do ls-l, I have this file created with 1 MB. Right, so 30,000 records, a small file, 1 MB. Okay. Now let's look at gender by city.p1. So here what we are doing is, okay, not this one. Let's see. Aggregate.py. So here what we are doing is we are reading the file that we have created. So we are going to get the number of males and number of females by city. So we create a dictionary, open a file, read a record. So there are five fields. I don't want the second field and third field, which is the last name and first name. I want the gender. I also don't want the last field. So city and gender is all I need. And then, so this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. This logic is, what it does is it creates a multi-level dictionary, right? It's a nested dictionary. So for each state, you will have two keys. It's a dictionary of dictionary, male and female. Okay. So you can look at the logic between 9 to 16. So what it does is, first of all, if the city is there, then it adds the gender and then increment the count. The city is not there, first it adds city as a key and then it adds the gender. Okay, so it's basically using the get function, and so it has to initialize. Okay, so what I would do is, like, I will explain this on Monday. Okay, but I want you guys to take a look at between 9 to 17. So this is basically constructing a city, a dictionary, a multi-level dictionary, and finally we close it, and then we let me also show you how this multi-level dictionary works. Okay, by city. So we are just doing a print, and then okay, this is too low. Let me take it up. So we are iterating the dictionary. The top level key is city, and inside that you have a male count and then female count, and then we do the total, and then we display city, males, females, and total. Okay, so we take the 30,000 records that we saw, and then we simply write 50 records. It's aggregation, right? So Adrian Ford, so it is sorted, 276 males and then 310 females. So we have 586 total number of population in this particular city. Okay, so now let's see here. Okay. So Adrian Ford has 586. So I think our logic is foolproof. So this is the dictionary it has created. Okay, so even though it doesn't make any much of sense to you, let me show you how it looks if you format it properly. Oh, okay. So it has it have a double quote. So if you look at it, so we have so this is right only. So Maria Town male. So Maria Town is a dictionary, right? So you have a key, but if you look at it, the value itself is another dictionary, male and female. West William Ford, male, female, and so on. Okay. So this is how nested data structures would look like. And then yesterday we saw that a value of a dictionary can be anything, including another dictionary or another list or whatever, right? So we constructed this dictionary by reading our input file. So this is, think of this as a very basic level of data analytics. Okay. So if you take it a little bit further, you can convert this data into a JSON file, right? And then, so if you are creating a website, you can pass this on, put a HTML page. So there is a drop down, you take a city. So you might show a pie chart, male versus female. Okay, or like for 50 cities, you can create multiple, like a tabular format and then put each pie chart, or like you can create bar charts, like each city, how many male, how many female. You can have two bar graphs to show the proportion and things like that. Okay, so we haven't used anything extra. So all we did was, so we just used, at least for the output, for the aggregation processing, we simply use the existing file, dictionary, how to construct a dictionary, how to deconstruct a dictionary back, and then we created a report that contains the city name, number of male, number of female, and number of population. Okay, so basically we condensed the original input file by grouping them and created a basic statistics. So 30,000 records has become 50 records. Okay. So unfortunately, I am not able to cover processing multiple files, and I will upload some sample, and then we will discuss about this on Monday. And Monday we will continue the discussion about functions modules, probably Monday and Tuesday. So it is 11:42. I'll stop it here.